Medicine is headed right into electrical medicine. Did anybody ever hear Nasir Hassan talk? Nassim, he was on Time magazine, he's a physicist. Guy is unbelievable. He solved Einstein's equations. He's in his 40s. He lived in Hawaii. That's right, you're from Hawaii. That's right, I met you before. We drank some water. What's your name again? Scott. Yeah, Scott and I drank a little blue water together. You know, we bonded. And it's amazing that you know Nassim. When I met Nassim, we were talking about zeta potential. And because I was looking for a perfect water, and we were talking about zeta potential, how the zeta potential thins the water. It's like water being wetter. And in his presentation, he was talking about how red blood cells, there's a force between red blood cells, and that red blood cells in our body function at the speed of light. Think about that. Our red blood cells are turning at 186,000 miles per second. That's unbelievable. Now, I got to tell you, as a cardiologist, I did 3,000 angiograms in a cath lab. And I was amazed when I was 30 years old, when I was a fellow in cardiology. We would put rubber bands around an artery, and we would cut an artery and stick a catheter in the artery, and then we would inject the heart would die, and the heart would light up like a Christmas tree, and we would see blockages. But sometimes those rubber bands would slip, and I'll never forget it as long as I lived. I will never forget this. If a rubber band slipped, that artery would squirt blood out and hit the ceiling 30 feet across the room. And what I got was that, well, that's why people bleed out from a gunshot wound within 30 seconds when you hit a major artery. But what I really got was how the heart can torque the blood. So think of it this way. When the heart contracts in systole, it twists like this, and the blood gets torqued, and the blood's spinning at 186,000 miles a second. The heart is an unbelievable organ. Unbelievable. Where it can have that force and throw that blood out. And now Pauling talked about when red blood cells start to lose vitamin C, they get knocked off by the spleen. Because what happens is when they get older, they can't keep up with their younger counterparts, and they can't function at 186,000 miles per second. So the body, in its wisdom, takes them out with the spleen. And then our bone marrow makes new red blood cells. So, in essence, we're electrical beings. You know, we're not flesh and bones. We're electric. We're electric. So, the heart, being an electrical organ, is the most vulnerable to toxic electrical stress, but it's the most susceptible to healing forces of harmonious waves that can nurture the heart. I spent 10 years in bioenergetic psychotherapy. And what bioenergetic psychotherapy is about is energy blocks. If you have an energy block in your body, the energy becomes stagnant, well, that section of the body can be prone to disease. For example, people who are constipated all the time or obstipated, they don't move, are more prone to bowel cancer. You know, as an example, people who don't breathe right, frozen diaphragms, barreled chest with a lot of heartbreak, don't expand their chest, get coronary disease. And there's a lot of science behind it. You know, they put out more thromboxane, their blood clots faster, they don't breathe as well. But anyway, in heart disease, I wrote the book Heartbreak in Heart Disease back when I was 42 years old. And what I got when I wrote that book was that how powerful emotional factors are in heart disease. It's almost like cancer. You know, with cancer, I mean, every patient that I know with cancer has some sort of emotional conflict going on, either consciously or unconsciously. In cardiac disease, there's an emotional conflict, but it has more to do with heartbreak and the loss of unconditional love. And basically, if we don't have unconditional love when we're growing up, well, then we develop a false self. You know, it can be called a coronary prone personality, a type A behavior pattern. You can give it certain names, but if you don't have unconditional love, then you associate love based on success. Well, so the body or the unconscious drive makes up the rule. Well, if I become successful, if I become a politician, a lawyer, a doctor, an accountant, somebody will love me. And that sets the stage for coronary prone behavior. So the loss of love, and it can happen with the loss of a parent, a divorce, a loss of a pet. I've had all sorts of scenarios in my practice. So basically, the healing power of love is just unbelievable. Look, when you fall in love, what happens to your cells? They dance, they vibrate. They vibrate, they dance. You're happy, you're joyful when you're in love. And people don't get sick. And then there's a nice study of pets. You know, Jim Lynch did this study years ago. Now, I'm going to interview Jim Lynch for one of my newsletters, you know, and talk about any more research he has on the healing power of love. But he did the work in dogs, where if you pet a dog, your blood pressure goes down. And then there was a study that came out later, and basically the study showed that if you had a heart attack and you came home to a pet, a cat or a loving dog, your incidence of a recurrent heart attack or death was 500% lower than if you came home to a judgmental spouse.